All right, guys, welcome back to Modern Survivability. Think fast, think accurate. This is our third installment of Real Talk. And Real Talk, like we discussed the first two times, is where we take our current events, some of the current events happening in the United States and around the world, and put them into a survival aspect and how they relate to us. Do be warned ahead of time. Some of this, there are some political things that will be talked about. Not really going to go down political roads. However, to address some of these current events, we are going to have to talk about some things that are in politics at the moment. So just throwing that out ahead of time. No matter who you like, who you're going to vote for, all that good stuff, we are going to talk about some of those things. So just be warned ahead of time. And just one of the first things we're going to actually talk about, and this actually just happened quite recently, right before, or at least I found out about it right before we were going to make this episode. There was a school shooting, another school shooting, I should say, in a Georgia high school. As of right now, there are 4 dead. They actually did get the suspect, and he is alive. And from what I'm reading right here, it says the suspect is 14 years old. 14 years old. For one, what the heck is your problem? Like, think about that. A 14-year-old. And before anybody goes out and says, "Oh, well, you know, how do you get the gun?" This, that, and the other. None of the details are really known at this moment. Everything's kind of evolving, or it's like some of your mainstream media likes to say, it's a fluid situation, right? Well, we're going to find out what happened. Obviously, this dude was taken alive, so maybe we will find out some details as to, motives, why this person did it, how they were actually able to get the firearm. Because I can't think of anywhere in America where you can, at least certain types of firearms, as a 14-year-old, possess a firearm. Some places you can hunt with shotguns and some rifles in some places, but that's neither here nor there. And we're going to relate that in actually a couple of different ways. You could go so many different ways with this. One being the urban survival aspect, an active shooter. And we're seeing it more and more prevalent in the news nowadays for a multitude of reasons. At least I think so. A bunch of these people that do these mass shootings, as they like to call them, school shootings, and so on and so forth, are, just let's go ahead and say it, they're crazy, right? And we're seeing more and more of it nowadays versus, like, for instance, when I was growing up, maybe when some of you guys were growing up, it wasn't as prevalent. There we go. I'll get the word out eventually. It wasn't. Me personally, I think that's due to a erosion of morals and values, kind of like what we talked about in the last episode about raising your kid right. We were talking about some of those obscene books that are in their schools and whatnot. I think there's a lot less humanity floating around, if you want to put it like that, wherever you derive that from in your own personal life, be it religion or, whatever it may be, right? Morals and values. If you don't care about the person beside you, you're more likely to do something dumb like this kid did. Basically a kid, not an adult, right? And shot dead. Like I said, right now it says 4. It hopefully doesn't go any higher. It's already bad enough that it's that, but morals and values, right? So in the survival aspect, think of that active shooter situation. It doesn't matter who's pulling the trigger. An active shooter is an active shooter, right? You may be in school, you may be in church, you may be at Walmart, you may be, name your place, right? And that active shooter situation could happen. What are you going to do, right? What are some of the things that you have prepared for to mitigate a horrible outcome to a situation like this? Some of the things to think about, whether that be you having a concealed carry. Me personally, I conceal carry. There's lots of people that do. You have a Second Amendment right to protect yourself, no matter what the politicians say on either side of the aisle, because both of them like to nitpick things to death, basically just to enhance their own political agenda. They don't really care about said Constitution or your rights. You have a right to defend yourself, and that means being armed if you choose to do so. You don't have to, but it is a way. But do make sure if you are going to exercise that right to self-defense by carrying a firearm, make sure you get the proper training, right? Just don't go buy a pistol, throw it on your side, and call it a day, because odds are somebody may use that against you because you don't know how to use it. There is a certain amount of training involved that you need to have before you strap a deadly weapon to you, right? Now, it should only be used for self-defense. That's it, period, to defend you and your family. Do note that there are some places in America and some of the people listening from other countries, obviously, that you can't carry, or like I said, in some of the other countries, you can't have a firearm, period. But here in America, we do have that Second Amendment right. So some states have trampled on it. Some municipalities, some different places around the country have trampled on that, added their own laws and little takes to it, even though shall not be infringed. It's kind of there. I mean, you can read, I would assume. But anyway, so with that being said, make sure you get the training if you're going to carry. Know what your abilities are, what your limits are. Make sure whatever weapon you are going to carry, you go to the range with it. Put a lot of rounds through it. Get very comfortable with how to use it. Get some quality firearms instruction. So I heard it say one time that they said, whatever you pay for your firearm, pay 3 times that much for your training. Make sure you get a professional firearms instructor to give you training if you don't already have it. Okay? School shootings, it's terrible. Okay? Mass shootings are, all these just people being evil. There's no other way to say that. So we're not going to beat that dead horse. We're really not. Just do know that every time you go out, especially in this day and age, with the more evil people that are around and in the world, it could happen at any time. So being prepared, and like we talk about in this podcast, should be one of your number one concerns. All right, I'd like to give a big shout out to one of my friends of K&J Creations. He made this really nice coin holder for me. It's a challenge coin holder. I think this particular one was like 24 by 48. They make them in all sizes. They also do laser engraving, CNC things. They make flags like this one. They'll put anything on it you want. They also do other coin holders, awards. They work in acrylic. They do drinkware like your laser engraved tumblers and coffee cups or whatnot, and some other LED things. So K&J Creations, you can find them on Facebook at K&J Creations. So yeah, go check them out. They did a fantastic job on this. So now we're going to move on to another topic. So a lot of things in the news that I've been seeing since the last time we did a podcast. One thing was the use of drones. Now, everybody's talked about drones. Everybody's seen drones. You can buy drones everywhere. Kids have drones. They're using drones even to deliver food in some places. Law enforcement, the military, everybody is using drones to some degree, right? They're getting more and more prevalent in the military. And I say military, not just ours, but militaries around the world, because some of these militaries are buying these drones from big box stores, and they're buying them in bulk, hundreds of them, because they're cheap, they get the job done, and they're easily replaceable. And some of them have a pretty good range. I don't know if you've seen any of the videos floating around from Ukraine, which is another thing we're going to kind of hit on here in a minute, using drones to drop hand grenades on troops, and you can watch it happen. They're also outfitting some drones with other types of weapons or whatnot, to include like CS, some chemical type weapons. That's going to kind of feed into the whole Ukraine thing that I was researching here. That's been hitting the news pretty prevalent since the last time we talked. The chemical weapon part of it. Now, we're not talking necessarily about sarin or like mustard gas or anything like that. Some of your big staples from that started out in the First World War in trench warfare, right? Chemical weapons came on the scene there, kind of made a debut there. Even though, you can look back through history and see uses of types of chemical weapons throughout history or whatnot, but actually being used in shells and explosives and things like that in the First World War, and they were actually used a lot. Okay. And up until now, they've been used in a bunch of different conflicts. Most of them you never really hear too much about, and it's kind of sporadic. Anything from the Iran-Iraq War. I think it lasted like 8 years. There were some chemical weapons used there. Saddam Hussein, gassing his own people. I think he killed like 5,000 people in northern Iraq at one point in time. When I was downrange a couple of times, there were insurgents that were starting to dabble in using chlorine weapons, chlorine bombs, because they work, they choke you, they're pretty effective, right? So it's kind of been going on. But now what I've been reading about since the war started in the last 2 years, and it's been on an uptick. In early 2024, early this year, I think they were up to about 600 uses of chemical type weapons in Ukraine in this conflict between Russia and Ukraine. As of 2 days ago, 2 days ago when I pulled this article, they were up to over 4,000 cases, 4,000 incidents of these chemical weapons being used. Now, most of them are like CS and stuff like that, and believe it or not, they're being used by both sides, not just Russia against Ukraine, but the other way around, because they both have access to the weapons. So I know it's war, and everybody, like we have the, rules of war and laws of war, Geneva Conventions, and all these other great things. If you've been in the military, you know what I'm talking about. Not all people follow those. Why? Because it's war. I mean, no plan survives first contact. I know some of you out there understand that. But in 1993, there was a chemical weapons convention passed, to which Ukraine and Russia both were signatories, and they're both using them against each other now. So it's just something to think about. All that went out the window. They're over there murking each other. And another part that we're going to talk about when it comes to the Ukraine-Russia conflict, or war, whatever we want to call it. It's a war. Let's just call it that. Yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, day before yesterday, Russia conducted a pretty large-scale attack using drones, ballistic missiles, and some cruise missiles, but it happened to be targeting, granted, they target civilians all the time, no matter what they say. Both sides do it, and they just call it collateral damage. I'm not with that, but, it's war, right? You start lobbing all these artillery shells, rockets, missiles, drones, planes, fighter jet, whatever it is, innocent people are going to get killed. A lot of people don't think about that before they start, flipping switches and doing these things, especially over something that, my personal opinion, shouldn't have happened anyway. There's lots of geopolitical stuff that goes into that as to why, Putin did what he did. It is what it is. Yeah. So, but with this particular attack, they were using some drones that were, the size of some of our Predator drones, Reaper drones. I saw one that was about the size of a Cessna, it looked like, and it crashed into a high-rise apartment building. Very, very eerily similar to some of the videos of 9/11 happening. I mean, it blew it up or whatever. However, the building caught on fire, right? It didn't collapse, but that's neither here nor there. So they were tearing it up. But one of the main targets they hit was I believe it was a military communications institute or a college. However, they killed, I want to say it's like 50 people were killed in that particular place, and most of them were civilians that just worked there, not actual military combatants. So, things are they're just doing whatever over there. There's no rhyme or reason how these guys are conducting anything. And yet again, we continue to send our tax money in the form of equipment, munitions, things like that over to these guys so they can slaughter each other for nothing. So also something else to think about. And kind of along on the same sheet of music, another current event that just recently happened. They're still trying to broker, the Biden administration is still trying to broker a ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. Okay. Unfortunately, Israel really doesn't want a part of it. Hamas doesn't seem to want a part of it because They just found 6 of the hostages still remaining from the, I believe it was October 7th um, incursion into Israel, where they came in and killed a whole bunch of people, kidnapped a bunch of people, took them hostage. They found 6 of those hostages murdered in a tunnel. So obviously, Israel's going to respond to that. They've already started responding to it. I'm not going to go too deep down that rabbit hole when it comes to what's happening, Israel and, the whole West Bank, Gaza Strip, Lebanon, the whole Mideast region over there. It is a powder keg waiting to explode into something way more serious than what's going on now. There's a lot of negative things happening over there. I don't personally agree with. However, when you have terrorists, a terrorist organization, an organization that calls itself a terrorist organization like Hamas and Hezbollah, they name themselves, not us. You're gonna have problems. And when you have somebody, it doesn't matter what side they fight for, that could condone killing innocent people, children, women, men. It doesn't matter. A murder is murder, period. Doesn't matter who you murder, it's still murder, right? I don't agree with that. I mean, somebody out there might, you might be on one of the sides that says, kill all the Jews or kill all the Palestinians or, whatever side you want to, claim, and you want to murder all the other ones, right? Well, you're not a good person, period. It just is what it is. So something to think about on that. Think about how much hate and anger, and I started off the podcast like this. If all the hate and anger we have going on in the world, if we could just chillax on some of that, we'd have a lot less problems. Somebody cuts you off in traffic, unless they do something super egregious like hit you or something like that, just let it go. Road rage ain't worth it, because nowadays somebody will pull a gun out and shoot you because you flip them off, because they cut you off because they were driving dumb. I mean, every day driving around here, I probably get cut off like 2 or 3 times. I just let it go. Now if you were to cause an accident, yeah, it might escalate a little bit, but still not to the point where I need to pull out a gun and shoot you. It's just not worth it. Not over something insurance can fix, or cars and stuff can be fixed. If you pull a gun out and you blast somebody's face off, you're not fixing that. Okay, so just think about that. And one of the next things that we're going to be talking about, and it's something that is very controversial. So, like I said at the beginning of this, I'm going to talk about some things that are a little political in nature and controversial in nature, and hey, not really trying to offend anybody, but if I do, it is what it is. Okay, and that is securing the border, right? Securing the border. Our border is wide open. It is. There's still a wall in places. Yes, there's still checkpoints. Yes, there's still border patrol agents. Yes, people still get caught coming across the border, and I understand that. I'm using it not exactly in a literal sense, like there's just nothing there. That's not true. There are measures in place, as there should be. But the thing I'm trying to get at right here is we are a sovereign nation, period. If you want to come to America, hey, I'm all about it. This nation was founded on immigrants. I'm 100%, good with that. But do it the right way, right? We're letting a whole bunch of bad characters come across the border and just kind of turning a blind eye because everybody wants to make it political. Oh, well, if you vote for me, then I'll do this, or if you vote for me, I'll do that, and we'll secure this, and we won't do that. And they're making it political when it doesn't have to be. It's turning into a humanitarian crisis in some places. A bunch of these people that are coming are being lied to start out with. They're, hey, you come here, you'll get all this for free, all this. And a bunch of them die in progress, die in the process of trying to get here because they were lied to for the whole purpose of, what they're trying to get at. Hey, come to America, it's going to be great. You'll get everything for free. And then they get here and it's not. I mean, sometimes they, depending on where they end up, maybe New York, Chicago, or something like that, or somewhere in California, maybe they'll get some things for free. But a bunch of people are, sold into human trafficking. A bunch of people die trying to cross the desert in the heat. Southwest America, in the in the middle of the summertime in the desert. I mean, on foot, it's bad. It really is. So there's lots of different ways to look at it, but we need a border that is secure. And for those of you out there that don't think we need a border that's secure, riddle me this. How come we can send our military to anywhere else in the world and we can secure their borders? Iraq, Afghanistan, we're helping with Israel, a whole bunch of other places that you won't see in the news because they don't broadcast it all over the place. A bunch of places in Europe, we help secure their borders using our people and our tax money and our equipment to do it, but we can't secure our own. There's a right way to get in our country. By all means, do it the right way. Come over, enjoy, become an American or whatever the case may be, however you want to do it, and enjoy it. But we're letting in terrorists, right? And it's not a boogeyman out there in the ether for anybody that thinks I'm just kind of like blowing smoke out there, right? Like, oh, the big bad boogeyman. We got terrorists coming across. Yeah, there are. You can go to any news outlet and they're reporting it. It doesn't matter which side they lean on. They can slant left, right, purple, indifferent. They'll tell you that, right? Whole bunch of gotaways. They're not coming back. The people you give a court date to that's like 6 months out, they'll probably forget about it if nothing else. And then you got a bunch of people that hinder other things that are going on in America, right? All those tax dollars, they could be spent for things like homeless veterans, improving Medicare, Medicaid, that every other country in the world, with the exception of maybe, one or two here there I'm just not aware of, right, has sovereign borders. If I was in Europe, I couldn't just walk into France. I couldn't just walk into Spain without going through a border checkpoint somewhere. And if I didn't have the right papers, maybe a passport or whatever it is, they're going to turn me around. I'm not going in their country. So why is it okay that we can help those people enforce their borders using our tax dollars, our equipment, our troops, whatever the case may be, but we can't enforce it back up, like our Border Patrol and the law enforcement agencies that are on the southern border? Why can't we back those guys up and help them do their job so it makes everybody a little bit safer, right? And it's not just about the safety of us in this country. It's also the people trying to get into this country, the people who are trying to come in illegally. Because like I said earlier, a bunch of them were lied to about what they were going to get when they got here. And then they, get to the border and then, might drown trying to cross the river or get picked up, given a court date. They don't know what to do. Maybe they don't speak English. Who knows what the case may be, right? Those guys, those people, men, women, and children, are also put in danger when it comes to that. And then the last part of that is the ones we're letting slip through the cracks. You best believe that people that do not like the United States, which is pretty much the rest of the free world, and a couple of the communist countries in there, they look to exploit weaknesses. That southern border is one of them. So that's something that's going to be coming up. So you need to look out for that and pay attention. Okay. Let's see. What else do we have that we're going to talk about today? We already hit on drones. We've already hit up the deal going on in Russia. There's a couple of other topics here that I was really wanting to talk about. One, all right, the Supreme Court, and this actually has to deal with Oklahoma. For those of you people who are in Oklahoma, Oklahoma was trying to, they took a case to the Supreme Court because they were suing the Biden administration over an abortion ban. Okay. Now, before we, go down that road, when it comes to thoughts on whether you are or are not for abortion, hey, that's your own personal preference. Me personally, I think it's murder. Murder is murder, period. But that's neither here nor there. When it comes to this current event, though, and how it actually affects us, the Supreme Court struck it down. They sided with the Biden administration on it. And basically what it was is Oklahoma was trying to still get federal funding for some of your medical things, medical procedures for women when it came to some of these things, with the exception of they kind of try to get the federal funds without being providing abortion care for women, right? Supreme Court said no, it's not going to work because the Biden administration told them you have to do the whole thing or nothing at all, and so they're trying to cut the federal funding for that. So that's going on. How that's going to affect us? Well, think of it like this: if you need women, if you need medical care when it comes to pregnancies and things like that, you got to have a place to go, right? Yeah, there's the hospital, the emergency room, but there's also clinics and things like that. It's something to seriously look at, right? Something to pay attention to. A bunch of these things, a bunch of these court cases that have actually come out this year, or they affect everybody a lot, and it goes all the way down from the top all the way down, and it could affect your daily life. That daily life could feed into maybe possibly could be a survival situation for you. Who knows? Depending on what your finances are, this, that, and the other, it all adds up. So something else to think about. Another one was, we talked about that. We talked about taxes last episode. Everybody knows where I stand. I personally think taxation is theft, with the exception of if you can show me a receipt, like we said before. Show me where my tax money's going. Adding more taxes does not fix the problem. The way you fix the problem is you stop spending so much money. And whether that be sending money to Ukraine to fight a war we got nothing to do with, really, right? Or whether you're spending, we send foreign aid to so many other countries. It's ridiculous. There was a graphic in our last video that we put in there that showed the amount of money we're sending to other countries every year, and it's astronomical. You can go back and look at that and see some of the figures. Right now, the big ticket is Ukraine and Israel. That's where most of the foreign aid is going, right? But explain to me why we have all this foreign aid going to other countries, and we can't fix all the problems we have here, right? Be it your homeless people or your elderly people that in some areas can't afford an air conditioner in the summertime. It's hot, right? It's 105 degrees outside. You need an air conditioner. There's some places in America where people die from the heat every year in America. Generally, it's more in your northern climates where they're not used to the high heat, but they die in other places as well. Why can't we fund some more of that? There's tons of places to put the money where it's actually going to be useful and beneficial to us. Because I guarantee you, if you were in a house that didn't have air conditioner, it's 106 degrees outside, 115 inside your house, you're going to believe that's a survival situation if you don't have an air conditioner to cool yourself down. It's something to think about, right? So look at where all this money's going. A bunch of it is money that's not even backed by anything, to be brutally honest. They're just printing money. You can do a little bit of research on that and look at the Federal Reserve and how the money is done or whatnot on your own, and see what I'm talking about. Some of it will blow your mind. A bunch of people don't realize that. They think they can just pull some cash out, for those of you that still use cash, which is far between, that you can just pull some cash out and that's that. That ties back into the inflation. The whole nine yards. A few years ago in Venezuela, when they had I say a few years, it's been about, I think it's about 10 years ago now. I'd have to look it up, but they had an economic collapse in Venezuela. People were using wheelbarrows full of money to buy a loaf of bread because they had hyperinflation. Prices went, just skyrocketed and stuff like that because they had an economic collapse. Well, economic collapses just don't happen. There are always precursors to that. There's always hints. Hey, you might want to check this out before we end up in this situation, like the housing, deal we had back in, I believe it was 2008, when people getting subprime mortgages that shouldn't have got them. Why? Because they were trying to garner more votes or whatever the case may be, trying to manipulate the market to, I don't know, maybe some of your billionaires become richer. Who knows, right? Whatever the case was. And it hurt a lot of people. That made a lot of people homeless. People getting variable rate interest rates when you purchase a house. Like one month your your mortgage payment's $1,000, and the next month it's 2,500, and you can't afford it. Next thing you know, you're homeless. So um, there's lots of ways that this whole financial situation, all the tax dollars that go here, there, and everywhere, can affect you personally and into a real life survival situation. It doesn't have to be a comet hitting the Earth, a super volcano erupting, zombie apocalypse or whatever you read about in books and see in movies, and whatever. Not an asteroid strike. Miss a paycheck and see what happens. For some people, that could be devastating. Okay. Um, so this other article I wanted to talk about real quick before we wrap this up. Right. We were talking about where'd it go? I got it here somewhere. Everybody thinks, I say everybody, most people like to think that their vote counts. All right. Now, it doesn't necessarily, we're not necessarily talking about a presidential election, but when you say voting, most people immediately think presidential election, right? We just had our local elections around here for sheriff, county commissioner, a couple of mayoral races around here, whatnot. And, excuse me, I'll give you one example. The town that's closest to us, the largest town that's closest to us, has a population of around 100,000 people, right? 100,000 people. They were doing the race for mayor. The mayor won the race. I think he had a little over, last time I looked at it, before obviously he won, but before I, clicked away from it, he was winning by, he had 60, I want to say like 61% of the vote. Oh, wow, dude's doing great, right? Out of 100,000 people that live in this particular city, we'll say that, I don't know, 2/3 of them know how to, are eligible to vote because, in that population, you got children and whatnot. We'll say 2/3 of them, right? So we'll say around, I don't know, close to 60,000 people eligible to vote. This dude won over 60% of the vote, and I think he had like 3,500 votes. That is ridiculous. You always want to complain. You always want to whine when somebody gets elected you don't like. You don't like their policies. You don't like, somebody says something about them. You believe it, whether it's true or not. It doesn't matter either side, left or right. But you don't get out and vote. That is one of the biggest things that you can do to help influence the outcome of your day-to-day life, especially with your local elections, like your mayors, your sheriffs, right? Things like that. Now, when it comes to presidential elections, we still have the Electoral College. A lot of people don't like the Electoral College. But there's the big if there, if we did not have the Electoral College, your large cities and places like that would be the deciding factors in almost all presidential elections and large elections like that. It's just numbers. It's just how it is. Most of your big cities are always going to be blue for the most part. And more of your rural areas are almost always going to be red. It's just how the voting works. So there's reasoning behind that. There's a method to the madness. So do a little research on your basic civics when it comes to voting and things like that before you go out and you cast your vote, right? Because voting does matter. It really does. So with that being said, I think we're going to wrap it up now. As far as Real Talk goes for this week, we're going to be putting out a video real soon on this. It won't be Real Talk, but it'll be on this YouTube channel, Modern Survivability. We're going to be doing the bug out bag. Haven't done one yet on this platform. We're finally going to do one here shortly. Don't know when it's going to be, but it's going to be shortly. And there's going to be a couple other videos that are going to be coming out that's not going to be part of the Real Talk series. It's going to actually survival stuff because that's what we're all about. So if you like the video, make sure you like, subscribe, comment below, leave me a comment. Constructive criticism is great. I will tell you ahead of time because this is a channel that kids may actually watch or able to be watched. So if you decide to post any derogatory comments or obscene comments or anything crazy like that, you're going to get deleted and blocked. It's just how it is. And it's not because me personally, I could care less if, somebody out there wants to act like that. You're entitled to your opinion. That's fine. If you want to blow up and act a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, by all means, that's fine. But there are children that might be reading this, looking at comments or whatnot, and they don't need to see stuff like that. And if you watch the last video, you understand my position on that. So, like I said, like, subscribe, comment, and go check us out on Instagram at Modern Survivability 3, over at Facebook at Modern Survivability, Spotify. This is also going to be broadcast on Spotify. Look for us, Modern Survivability, and go back and look at the last 2 seasons. We're on season 2 right now. I think this is episode 7 or 8 for the second season. So you can go back and look at the other ones or listen to the other ones. Other than that, that's really all I have for this episode. So, with that being said, speed is fast, but accuracy is final. Stay safe and remember, you are the last line of defense.